Panasonic video systems, just slightly ahead of our time.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today, I figured I'd talk about Panasonic's ecosystem and what they offer currently in 2023 and how they can remain competitive with the bigger manufacturers in the full-frame space. I wanted to make a couple of points in this video now that I'm a Panasonic S5 Mark II owner, and I think they definitely went in the right direction with this camera. It is a pretty incredible camera, but either way, I still wanted to make this video addressing just a few things here and there that I think that they could look at or implement for their system. The big thing, and I think this is a given across the board, everybody can agree with me on this, Panasonic needs to make sure that all of their cameras moving forward, whether they're full frame or micro four thirds, have phase detect autofocus in them. Full stop. I don't see why any camera moving forward can't have this. I think that most users, content creators, cinematographers, videographers, even photographers want phase detect autofocus. Now, I understand that there are pros out there that don't use phase detect autofocus, but again, that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be included in the camera. You can just shut it off. Pros are typically shooting on cinema glass, and that's obviously going to be manually focused, or they have a focus puller anyway. But I think that overall, every camera moving forward should have autofocus, phase detect autofocus, no question. To add to this point, Panasonic needs to make sure that they don't cripple cameras moving forward. Now, Panasonic isn't typically a manufacturer that cripples their cameras, but I do see some quirks and some little nuances here and there where they definitely hold back certain features. One of them being with the Panasonic S5 Mark II. Yes, the Panasonic S5 Mark II that everybody's raving about, including myself. There are a couple of things that I have noticed over the past few weeks that I think are definitely a little bit of a setback. That being that there is no phase detect autofocus in full frame HD high frame rate modes. So if you want to shoot high frame rate modes like 60 or 120 frames per second in full HD with that full frame sensor, you are not getting phase detect autofocus, which kind of sucks. For me personally, I don't really shoot in high frame rate modes that often anyway, so it's not a big deal for me. But if you're somebody that does shoot in high frame rate modes, that is something to consider when looking at these two cameras. Now, again, this video is more about the system as a whole. I just want to make sure that moving forward, they don't continue this trend of crippling features in cameras. Now, I know obviously people are going to say, well, they crippled the fact that you can't shoot full frame 4K in high frame rate modes in this camera. But again, this was kind of to be expected because the A7 IV, which is $500 more, doesn't have full frame 4K 60 either. So I don't think that that's really what I'm talking about in this situation. I do understand that they're going to block certain features for higher end models. I do think that there's no reason that the phase detect autofocus couldn't have been available in the high frame rate full HD recording modes. Yes, I got that right. And point number 3, I think Panasonic needs to bridge the gap between their micro four thirds users and the LMount system, because currently all of the other manufacturers have APS-C cameras and lineups, and those APS-C cameras share the same mount with their full frame sister cameras. I don't think that Panasonic needs to go into the APS-C market. That's not what I'm saying here. But one thing that I think they can do, and they should definitely consider, is putting some research and development in implementing a first-party like Lumix or LMount Metabones like speed booster, because we do know that a lot of users in the micro four thirds space use a Metabone speed booster with their GH4, GH5, GH6, and so on. So I don't see why Panasonic couldn't create their own speed booster that's specific to the LMount. And that way, I think it bridges the gap a little bit between the micro four thirds users, and they can use their LMount series glass, or I said LMount series, LMount glass, with their micro four thirds cameras. Currently, there's just specifically micro four thirds lenses available, and they have to use Canon L glass, which is still great for that system. I just think overall this would definitely make it a little bit more enticing for people to jump into Panasonic's ecosystem, because then they can use the L glass, the L-mount Alliance glass, with their micro four thirds cameras. Now, they do need to make sure that it is compatible with their phase detect autofocus, though. That is something that they need to make sure they get down pat. The fourth thing that I think that Panasonic needs to do They don't seem to have a 16-35 f2.8 besides the Sigma 16-28, which I know is technically a first-party lens because of the LMount alliance, but I still think that they need to have their own specific Pro Series lenses introduced into this system, because I think a lot of people are looking at the system now that they have the Phase Detect autofocus, but it doesn't seem like they have as many lenses available like, you know, Sony and Canon does, because Canon, of course, can, you know, use that specific, not speed booster, but that adapter to get the EF glass onto their camera. Now, I know you can do that with the S5 Mark II and the S5 Mark IIX, but I still think that Panasonic does need to introduce a few more lenses into their lineup. The longer telephoto range lenses, and I know there's not that many people that are doing wildlife on Lumix cameras, but I still think it should, it should include that overall. So these are just my thoughts on how Panasonic can increase their market share for the LMount and just address their ecosystem as a whole. I'd love to know what you think about the current state of Panasonic and what they can do to increase market share and remain competitive with the other big manufacturers out there. With that being said, I really appreciate that you checked out this video. If you like what you see, or if you don't like what you see, feel free to leave a comment down below. Are you considering getting a Panasonic camera in the near future with the announcement of the S5 Mark II or the S5 Mark IIX? I'd love to know your thoughts down below, and if you did like this video, feel free to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later.